Hi, I am Mohsen, and this is part three in Simon Fraser University's six-part screencast on successful and ethical exam writing. In this part, I will be addressing two of the most common concerns about exams that we hear about from students. First, how to manage time while writing the exam so that you will be able to answer more of the questions. Second, how to manage exam anxiety to prevent your mind going blank while writing an exam. Most of us have experienced the frustration of running out of time when writing an exam. I will remind you of how to manage time in a typical exam. Skim the entire exam first. Make a mental note of how much time you should be spending per mark, and then answer the questions that you can answer easily. Leave the most difficult questions until the end so that if you run out of time, you will only miss the questions that you would have lost marks on anyhow. It's very common to have exams with some multiple choice questions and some short answer and or essay questions. Take a minute to think about what order you would tackle the different sections of that type of exam. And then I will recommend an order that might help. I recommend reading the writing questions first, and if there is choice, deciding and marking which question you are going to answer. Don't answer them yet, but keep the writing questions in the back of your mind as you move on to the multiple choice questions. The next step is to quickly go through the multiple choice questions, answering the easy ones as you go, and indicating the difficult ones that you will come back and answer later. Reading the multiple choice questions is likely to jog your memory about points that you can include in your written answers. With those hints fresh in your mind, next, answer the written questions, starting with the easiest one. Once the written questions are answered, answer the tougher multiple choice questions. You are leaving those until the end because they are only worth 1 mark each, and you might not get that mark anyhow. Unless you will lose marks for wrong answers, if you have no idea of the answers or have very little time left, you can just quickly indicate an answer to them at random in the hopes of picking up a few marks. Section 4 of this series has information about how to work through difficult multiple choice questions. At this point, those of you who have forced order online exams where you see one question at a time must be pretty frustrated because you can't apply any of the strategies I just discussed. You never get the opportunity to see the exam as a whole, and you can't answer easier question first or go back to a question if you remember something new. And quite often, you will only have a certain amount of time to answer each question, which are usually multiple choice or something similar like true and false, or fill in the blank. It is a frustrating situation, but your instructor's choice of exam formats is something you can't control. For that kind of exam, find out how much time you will have per question. Set a timer and practice answering the same format questions in the same time frame. Even better, give yourself 2/3 or 3/4 of the time you will be given for each question on the exam when you practice. To be able to answer questions in that time limit, you will have to not just study for the exam, but over-prepare to the point where you hardly even need to think about answers. They will most come automatically. In addition to speeding up your test taking by knowing the content of your course very well, you will also speed up if you learn and use good strategies for answering particular question, for answering particular question formats that are covered in other parts of these series. The time factor on exams is one of the many reasons that exams can be nerve-wracking. There are several ways to deal with these situations, some of which, like studying, are most useful if you start practicing now before you are in an anxious situation. Here are a few basic suggestions. For the most part, preparation is the key to reducing anxiety. You may feel too anxious to prepare, but if you are able to push through that, you often feel much better after the first little while. Pay attention to the basics of health, including sleep, exercise, and proper nutrition, even during busy time. Actually, especially during busy times. These activities energize you and reduce your stress. So why would you give them up when you most need them? Also, pay attention to what you are telling yourself when you feel anxious. You might realize that you keep sending yourself negative messages while you are trying to study, such as, I'm going to fail the test. Practice writing down those thoughts when you think them, and then write down a more positive response, such as, I always feel unprepared when I first start to study, but when I study anyhow, I usually get a better mark than I expect. Meditation is a great way to reduce anxiety and works best when practiced regularly. SFU's Health and Counseling Services offers drop-in mindfulness meditation sessions on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 12:30 p.m. Another great resource for exam anxiety is to work with a counselor at HCS. Because they work exclusively with university students, the counselors here have developed an expertise in treating exam anxiety. If you have severe exam anxiety that causes your mind to go blank on exams, even when you are well prepared, particularly if this situation has happened for a number of years, you may have an anxiety disorder. It might be worth checking it out with a doctor, either at HCS or elsewhere. If you receive a formal diagnosis, contact SFU Center for Accessible Learning to see if they can help arrange accommodations for your exam, such as extra time. If you want more information about how to deal with exam anxiety, please scan this QR code to take you to a page with a fun 4.5-minute video, as well as other web resources. This part of service is coming to an end. So it's a good time to take a few notes on new strategies you plan to try to manage your time and reduce anxiety during exams. The next 3 parts of the video will discuss how to write specific types of exams. Thanks for watching and see you soon.